Take about 5 dozen plugins, put them in a chain, throw them in Portal, mix the out of it, and what do you get? Whoa, hey. What's good, everybody? Welcome to a Portal tutorial. I'm not going to be doing a review over this because... Okay, let's just move on. So, what is Portal? It's freaking cool. I'm going to upload a new project file and we'll kind of just throw something in there and see what happens. But the main features of it is that it is a granular effect as opposed to a granular synth, and that means that you can throw it on top of something as opposed to having to put a sound source inside of it, kind of like granulator. I'm going to try to keep this video relatively short. The little small clip that you heard was something that I've been working on the past week or so that's been really cool, so check out my live streams on Twitch and all that stuff. Also, as you guys know, I have a bunch of other resources available on Patreon where I'm kind of giving that an overhaul. I think that instead of project files and all that, I'll start uploading presets and sample packs, and probably more incentives to kind of keep you guys happy, because right now you guys are giving me a huge help and I just want you all to know that I am so grateful. So as opposed to making some kind of sound source that's going to take me 20 minutes to design, let's just go ahead and like throw something up from a song. So I'm going to go ahead and find something that I made just to keep things, you know, no copyright infringement. Nightmares, it's on my EP. Yay. My very first EP. Go listen to it if you haven't already, because it's cool. It's different. All right, so all you have to really do is kind of keep in mind a couple of things in order to get some things that are usable. And what I mean by that is just be aware of the features that this allows. Again, I'm not doing a review over this, and I'm not even going to do an in-depth tutorial. I'm just going to kind of show you some of the things that I do in order for me to get some usable results. And part of that is honestly by knowing that the Portal also has some not external, but some extra effects over here, and then being mindful of kind of like the sync versus non-sync. And to be honest, this is going to be one of the most important features that is going to differentiate why you would consider purchasing this as opposed to a different granular synth. It's because it allows you to cut your grains up and sync to your host BPM. Now that might not sound like a big deal to you, but if you throw this into granulator, then you're going to get a lot of interesting sounds, but it becomes very difficult to use because you're going to have to go and rewarp everything, where this will do all the work for you. So to kind of keep things as a brief example, let's go ahead and just loop maybe this part right here. And if you haven't heard the song already, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. If you haven't heard the song already, then no worries. You can go listen to it somewhere else. But let's go ahead and just turn some of this stuff on and I'll show you what I mean. So you can see that generally the master control is synced up to the grain control here, where everything else will kind of affect around it. So if we kind of keep that in mind, generally I'll keep the density on sync and then everything else is kind of free flow. But if I switch this up, you'll kind of notice how it changes up a little bit. The retrigger is set to as fast as it can go, and the stretch is kind of just freezing these chops. Okay, so if we have all that in mind, then how does this come into play with how to find something usable? Well, we have all these other different things that we can play with. The grain delay, of course, is something that's really awesome. I would turn the high pass down and the low pass up and just give it a full sound. And then we would introduce some other effects. But let's go ahead and play with this for just a second. And I'm going to kind of just show you how you can start to create something rhythmic out of all these things in the first place. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Scales and then turn that to Octave. And maybe turn the pitch down right here so we'll get some more lower tones. Then let's go ahead and play with this. And then we'll turn the feedback up, so this is going to bleed over a little bit. It might even be cool to turn the sync off on this and mess with this a little bit. Set this off, turn that up. And there we go. Okay, so obviously the kind of sounds that we're getting are somewhat unpredictable, but it's just something to keep in mind of whenever you're going for these kinds of things, that you can automate the pitch and just stay right here and create some really cool, interesting things. So for me, the magic really comes alive when I start throwing a secondary delay in here and I just start turning things. This stuff doesn't really matter so much, and even this doesn't necessarily have a big effect, but playing with the time, feedback, the density, the size, offset, not so much. But that will kind of give you the biggest sound changes. So now that I have the delay on, make sure that you turn it to stereo and turn the wet all the way up. And from here, we're going to go ahead and just create some randomness. So here we go. Ha, cool. So as you can see, like, this is super easy to lose a ton of time on. But you'll notice that I sometimes switch between turning the sync on and off whenever I'm playing this, and then I would just set up a resampling channel to bounce out the best of these things. So one more thing that I want to leave you with, of course, of like the amount of options and the amount of depth is like way too much to explain in a single video. If you want me to do like a complete overview of this, it's going to be really cut and dry as opposed to just listening to like all the cool sounds that you can make. I can do that, but let me know in the comments, because that's a lot of editing and it's a lot of like dry information. I'd rather just keep this stuff like down to the point for you. So yeah, some other things to consider though is that don't just throw Portal on and then leave it alone. I mean, I suppose you can, but add more effects to it. Stack portals. What happens if you do 20 of these? Who knows? But, you know, it's who's to say, like, as long as your CPU can handle it. Wait, what happens if I push play? 3, 2, 1.
What the fuck?
Nothing happens. Oh, it's gonna happen. Sometimes you get some really cool stuff. Well, see what I mean? You just never really know what's going to happen. So don't be afraid to experiment and try all these different things, because you're going to have a lot more fun doing it that way as opposed to slapping on a preset and hoping that something works, which is definitely viable, especially if you've never opened this before. But Portal is going to become, I believe, a very important tool in my arsenal for the sake of the granular abilities that it has, but also that way I can use it in rhythm. So that way it's going to help me with creating bass lines, because I think that's the biggest struggle that we all have when trying to write these kinds of experimental / neuro / whatever you want to call it tunes. Throw anything in there. Change the pitch of it. You want to make it a bass, then make it a bass. Don't worry about your low end. Don't worry about stereo being this and that and being a perfect EQ and all that. Just distort it and compress it, and then worry about it later. That's the point of breaking the rules, right? I hope that this was pretty informal to you guys. Be sure to check out my Twitch, where I stream 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Patrons, if you guys are watching this, I have something coming up for you. So expect something pretty cool. Nothing major, but expect something on the 19th. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Happy producing.